Stories and Documentary Network. The Pagan Kingdom, also known as the Bagan Kingdom, holds a significant place in the history of Southeast Asia as the first unified empire of Burma, now known as Myanmar. Emerging in the 9th century and flourishing until the 13th century, Pagan marked the beginning of a centralized Burmese state. It was under the rule of the Pagan dynasty that the diverse ethnic and regional communities of Burma were brought together, laying the foundation for what would eventually become modern Myanmar. The Pagan Kingdom not only unified the territory but also served as a center for religious and cultural development, with its contributions to Theravada Buddhism and architecture being especially notable. Before the rise of the Pagan Kingdom, the Irrawaddy Valley was home to various Pyu city-states and early Burmese settlements. The Pyu people were among the earliest inhabitants of this region, establishing themselves as a distinct civilization between the 1st and 9th centuries. These early city-states, such as Sri Ksetra and Halen, were integral in shaping the cultural and political landscape of what would eventually become Burma. The Pyu, known for their advanced irrigation systems and urban centers, helped create the agricultural and trade networks that later supported Pagan's rise. The Irrawaddy River, one of the most important waterways in Southeast Asia, was crucial for both trade and agriculture. It allowed for fertile rice cultivation, which contributed to population growth and the emergence of urban centers. This strategic location also provided a natural defense, enabling Pagan to develop into a powerful kingdom. Additionally, the river connected the early settlements to the wider region, facilitating trade with neighboring kingdoms in Southeast Asia and India. This interaction with other cultures played a key role in shaping the early social and religious structures of Pagan. The Pagan Kingdom began its rise around the 9th century, with its capital located at Pagan, Bagan, in the heart of the Irrawaddy Valley. The early history of Pagan is closely tied to its ruling dynasty, which emerged as a dominant force in the region. The kingdom's formation involved the gradual unification of smaller territories and ethnic groups, including the Pyu and Mon peoples, under a central authority. The first significant ruler to emerge was King Anawrahta, reigned 1044 to 1077, who is credited with founding the Pagan Empire by consolidating smaller principalities into a single political entity. Anawrahta's military campaigns, particularly his conquest of the Mon kingdom of Thetan, were crucial in establishing the foundations of the Pagan state. His reign marked the beginning of Pagan's dominance over the region and set the stage for the kingdom's expansion and cultural development. Indian influence played a significant role in shaping the early culture of Pagan, particularly through the introduction of Buddhism and Hinduism. Indian merchants, scholars, and religious leaders brought these traditions to Burma, and the region became a melting pot of Buddhist and Hindu practices. Early rulers of Pagan were influenced by both Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism, as well as elements of Hinduism. This cultural exchange laid the foundation for the later spread of Theravada Buddhism, which became the dominant religion during King Anawrahta's reign. Indian art, architecture, and religious iconography were also integrated into Pagan's early culture, as seen in the kingdom's temples and religious monuments. The unification of various religious and cultural traditions helped shape Pagan's identity as a center for Buddhist scholarship and pilgrimage. This fusion of Indian religious influences with local traditions formed the backbone of Pagan's social and religious structures, which would evolve throughout the kingdom's history and continue to shape Burmese society for centuries to come. King Anawrahta is widely regarded as the founder of the Pagan Empire and one of the most significant rulers in Burmese history. His reign marked the beginning of a unified Burma, as he successfully consolidated power and expanded the kingdom's influence both militarily and culturally. Prior to Anawrahta's rule, Pagan was a collection of smaller, semi-independent states. However, his leadership transformed it into a powerful and cohesive empire. One of Anawrahta's most notable achievements was his conversion to Theravada Buddhism, which shaped the religious landscape of Burma for centuries to come. Initially a practitioner of Mahayana Buddhism mixed with local animist traditions, Anawrahta encountered Theravada Buddhism through his conquest of the Mon kingdom of Thetan in 1057. After capturing Thetan and bringing its sacred Buddhist scriptures, monks, and artisans to Pagan, Anawrahta worked to spread Theravada Buddhism throughout his kingdom. He built pagodas, temples, and monasteries, making Pagan a center for religious learning and pilgrimage in Southeast Asia. Anawrahta's military campaigns were also instrumental in establishing Pagan as a regional power. His conquest of the Mon kingdom was significant not only for religious reasons but also for the acquisition of skilled Mon artisans and administrators who helped develop Pagan's culture and government. In addition to the Mon, Anawrahta also conducted campaigns against the Khmer Empire and Arakan, expanding Pagan's influence and securing strategic trade routes. His ability to combine diplomacy and military prowess ensured Pagan's dominance in the region. Following Anawrahta's death, his successors continued to build on his legacy, expanding the Pagan Empire to its greatest territorial extent. Kings like Kyanzitha (1084–1113) and Alangsithu played key roles in strengthening Pagan's position as a major power in Southeast Asia. Kyanzitha is remembered for maintaining the stability and prosperity initiated by Anawrahta. He further expanded the empire's borders, extending Pagan's influence over much of modern-day Myanmar, including areas like Shan, Kachin, and Rakhine. Under his rule, Pagan became an important center for Buddhist scholarship, attracting monks and scholars from across the region. Kyanzitha also emphasized diplomatic relations, maintaining peaceful interactions with neighboring kingdoms like the Khmer Empire, which helped secure Pagan's regional dominance. The economic and agricultural growth of Pagan was driven by the fertile lands of the Irrawaddy Valley, which became the empire's agricultural heartland. The valley's rich soil and abundant water supply from the Irrawaddy River supported extensive rice cultivation, which in turn fueled population growth and urban development. The agricultural surplus allowed Pagan to become a hub for regional trade, linking it to important trade routes with India, China, and the wider Southeast Asian world. Pagan's economy also benefited from its position as a religious and cultural center, drawing pilgrims, traders, and artisans from various parts of Asia. The kingdom engaged in trade with its neighbors, exporting goods such as rice, teak, and other natural resources while importing luxury items and religious texts. This trade network contributed to Pagan's wealth and allowed the empire to finance its extensive building projects, including the construction of thousands of temples and stupas that still stand today in Bagan. The introduction of Theravada Buddhism played a transformative role in the political, cultural, and religious landscape of the Pagan kingdom. Prior to the reign of King Anawrahta, the region's religious practices were a mix of animism, Mahayana Buddhism, and various local beliefs. This diverse religious landscape began to shift when Anawrahta adopted Theravada Buddhism and actively promoted it throughout his kingdom, establishing a unifying religious and cultural identity for Pagan. One of Anawrahta's most significant contributions was the introduction of the Pali Canon, the sacred scriptures of Theravada Buddhism, into Pagan's religious life. After his conquest of the Mon kingdom of Thetan in 1057, Anawrahta brought Mon monks and Buddhist texts back to Pagan. The Mon people, who had been practicing Theravada Buddhism for centuries, played a crucial role in shaping Pagan's religious transformation. Anawrahta promoted the Sangha, Buddhist monastic order, as a powerful and respected institution in his kingdom, fostering the establishment of Buddhist monastic communities. Theravada Buddhism became the dominant force shaping Pagan's political and cultural identity. Anawrahta's support for the monastic order and his efforts to consolidate religious authority strengthened his rule by legitimizing his kingship through religious piety. Additionally, the introduction of Theravada Buddhism did not completely eradicate the pre-existing animist and Mahayana practices in Pagan. Instead, a synthesis of beliefs emerged, where animist rituals continued alongside Buddhist worship, and Mahayana influences persisted in art and architecture. Pagan's architectural legacy is one of its most enduring contributions to Southeast Asian culture. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, the kingdom became renowned for the construction of thousands of pagodas, stupas, and temples, many of which still stand today in Bagan, the ancient capital of the Pagan kingdom. These structures not only served as religious centers but also as symbols of the kingdom's devotion to Buddhism and its wealth and power. One of the most famous religious sites from this period is the Ananda Temple, built during the reign of King Anawrahta, 1084 to 1113. The Ananda Temple is celebrated for its distinctive architectural style, which combines Mon, Indian, and local Burmese influences. The temple's design features a central square structure with multiple terraces, crowned by a gilded stupa, and houses 4 large standing Buddha statues. The temple's interior is adorned with intricate carvings and sculptures depicting scenes from the life of the Buddha, highlighting pagans' sophisticated artistic and architectural skills. Another iconic structure is the Shwezigon Pagoda, which was begun by Anawrahta and completed during the reign of King Anawrahta. The Shwezigon Pagoda became a model for future Burmese stupas, with its gilded dome and circular terraces. It was originally built to enshrine relics of the Buddha and is considered one of the most important pilgrimage sites in Myanmar. The Shwezigon Pagoda represents the fusion of religious devotion and architectural grandeur, a hallmark of pagans' Buddhist landscape. Monastic life played a central role in pagans' cultural development, with the kingdom becoming a hub for Buddhist scholarship and monastic education. Kings and nobles were generous patrons of the Sangha, funding the construction of monasteries and the commissioning of religious texts. Monks were highly regarded as spiritual leaders and advisors to the royal court, and their influence extended to various aspects of pagans' governance and society. Monasteries in Pagan were not only religious centers but also important hubs of education and learning. Monks were tasked with preserving and transmitting the Pali Canon and Buddhist teachings, as well as teaching the local population. Monastic communities also engaged in the practice of meditation, ritual ceremonies, and scriptural study, solidifying the central role of Buddhism in daily life. The relationship between the royal court and the monastic order fostered a thriving cultural environment, where religion, art, and architecture flourished in harmony. The patronage of Buddhist scholars and teachers by the pagan kings ensured that the kingdom became a center of Buddhist learning and culture in Southeast Asia. The construction of temples, the establishment of monastic communities, and the flourishing of Buddhist scholarship all contributed to the development of a uniquely Burmese Theravada Buddhist culture, which would have a lasting impact on the region for centuries to come. The Khmer Empire, a powerful and influential kingdom in modern-day Cambodia, was a contemporary of Pagan. Although the two empires never engaged in significant military conflict, they maintained a relationship based on mutual respect, recognizing each other's dominance in their respective regions. This was especially important as both kingdoms were centers of Buddhist and Hindu culture in Southeast Asia, influencing each other through religious and cultural exchanges. Both empires supported the spread of Theravada Buddhism, which created a shared religious and philosophical framework, fostering peaceful relations. Relations with Sri Lanka were particularly strong due to the shared Theravada Buddhist heritage. During King Anawrahta's reign, diplomatic and religious ties were established between Pagan and Sri Lanka, further cementing their common Buddhist roots. Anawrahta is believed to have sought Buddhist relics and scriptures from Sri Lanka, bolstering his kingdom's religious authority. Monks and scholars traveled between the two regions, facilitating a cultural and religious exchange that strengthened ties and contributed to the spread of Theravada Buddhism across Southeast Asia. The Song dynasty in China was another key player in the region during Pagan's rise. Diplomatic relations between Pagan and the Song were primarily focused on trade, with Chinese merchants traveling to Pagan to exchange goods. Although military confrontations were rare, Pagan sought to maintain peaceful relations with China to secure its northern borders and ensure the smooth flow of commerce. The Song recognized Pagan's strength and saw the kingdom as a vital trade partner in the region. Pagan's relations with the Mon kingdoms, particularly Thetan and Pegu, were more complex. Initially, King Anawrahta launched a military campaign against the Mon kingdom of Thetan in 1057, leading to its conquest. This victory played a pivotal role in the establishment of Pagan's dominance in the region and the introduction of Theravada Buddhism to Pagan, as Anawrahta brought Mon monks and Buddhist scriptures back to his kingdom. Despite the military conquest, relations between Pagan and the Mon people were shaped by religious and cultural integration, as the Mon continued to exert influence over Pagan's Buddhist practices and artistic traditions. Pagan's growing power also allowed it to act as a mediator and stabilizing force in Southeast Asia during its height. The kingdom engaged in diplomatic efforts to balance regional powers, often seeking peaceful resolutions to conflicts with neighboring states. This role as a stabilizing force helped Pagan maintain its position as a major player in regional politics, contributing to the overall stability of the region during this period. Pagan's rise as a regional power was supported by its economic prosperity, which was largely driven by agriculture and trade. The fertile plains of the Irrawaddy River Valley provided ideal conditions for rice cultivation, which became the backbone of Pagan's agricultural economy. Rice surpluses allowed the kingdom to support a growing population, while also providing a basis for trade with neighboring regions. In addition to agriculture, trade played a crucial role in Pagan's economic development. The kingdom's strategic location along the Irrawaddy River allowed it to control important trade routes linking India, China, and Southeast Asia. The Irrawaddy served as a vital trade artery, facilitating the movement of goods and people both within the kingdom and beyond its borders. Pagan's capital, Bagan, became a bustling center of commerce, attracting foreign merchants from as far as India, China, and the Middle East. Pagan's foreign trade network was diverse and extensive. Merchants from India brought textiles, spices, and luxury goods, while Chinese traders supplied silk, porcelain, and other valuable commodities. The kingdom also established trade links with Persian and Arab merchants, who brought exotic goods and ideas from the Middle East. In return, Pagan exported agricultural products, handicrafts, and Buddhist relics and art, which were highly prized by its trading partners. The presence of foreign merchants in Pagan contributed to the kingdom's economic prosperity and fostered cultural exchange. The wealth generated from trade allowed the Pagan kings to fund the construction of thousands of temples, pagodas, and monasteries, reinforcing the kingdom's position as a center of Buddhist learning and culture. Additionally, the influx of foreign goods and ideas enriched Pagan's own artistic and architectural traditions, as local craftsmen incorporated Indian, Chinese, and Persian influences into their work. Despite its wealth and power, Pagan's economy was not immune to challenges. The kingdom relied heavily on agriculture, and fluctuations in climate or river levels could lead to food shortages and economic instability. Additionally, the kingdom's expanding trade network required a strong central government to maintain order and ensure the safety of trade routes. This reliance on foreign trade also made Pagan vulnerable to external pressures, as changes in trade patterns or conflicts with neighboring kingdoms could disrupt the flow of goods and impact the kingdom's prosperity. The Pagan kingdom reached its cultural zenith between the 11th and 13th centuries, during which it became renowned for its artistic and architectural achievements. The flourishing of Buddhist art and the construction of grand religious monuments were central to Pagan's cultural identity, marking this period as the Golden Age of Pagan. At the heart of Pagan's artistic legacy lies the Bagan Plain, where thousands of temples, stupas, and monasteries were constructed. It is estimated that over 10,000 religious structures were built during the height of the kingdom, of which approximately 2,200 remain today, making it one of the richest archaeological zones in the world. These structures were not only religious in nature but also served as symbols of the kingdom's political power and cultural sophistication. The Dhammayangyi Temple and the Thatbayanyu Temple stand out as two of the most important architectural feats from this era. The Dhammayangyi Temple, the largest in Bagan, is a massive brick structure built by King Anawrahta in the 12th century. It is noted for its precise brickwork and grand scale, symbolizing the power of the kingdom and the king's devotion to Theravada Buddhism. The temple's pyramid-like design and central shrine, influenced by earlier Indian and local architectural styles, represent Pagan's blending of Indian, Southeast Asian, and indigenous traditions. The Thatbayanyu Temple, another masterpiece, is the tallest structure in Bagan, standing at over 61 meters, 200 feet. Built during the reign of King Anawrahta in the mid-12th century, it symbolizes the kingdom's increasing wealth and devotion to Buddhist scholarship. The temple's elegant spires and multi-tiered structure reflect influences from both Indian and Southeast Asian designs, while also incorporating elements unique to Pagan's local aesthetic. The design of these religious structures, particularly the stupas, reflects pagans' unique blend of cultural influences. Stupas, domed structures containing Buddhist relics, were a common architectural form in Buddhist kingdoms across South and Southeast Asia, but in Pagan, they took on a distinctive style. The bell-shaped stupas of Pagan, like the Shwezigon Pagoda, with their gilded surfaces and intricate carvings, became iconic symbols of Burmese Buddhist architecture. These stupas served not only as places of worship but also as repositories of sacred relics and symbols of the king's piety and legitimacy. The extensive construction of monasteries and temples also provided space for artistic expression. Inside these structures, murals and sculptures depicting scenes from the life of the Buddha, Jataka tales, stories of the Buddha's past lives, and other Buddhist motifs adorned the walls. Local artisans blended traditional Indian iconography with Burmese aesthetics, resulting in a rich and diverse artistic legacy. Burmese-style Buddha statues, with their distinctive facial features and serene expressions, became prominent during this period, symbolizing the kingdom's commitment to Buddhist teachings. The rise of Theravada Buddhism under King Anawrahta and subsequent rulers led to a surge in the production of Buddhist texts. These texts, which included translations of the Pali Canon, the foundational scriptures of Theravada Buddhism, commentaries, and teachings of renowned monks, were used to educate monks, scholars, and the lay population about Buddhist doctrine. The proliferation of these texts helped solidify Pagan's role as a center of Buddhist learning in Southeast Asia. In addition to religious texts, the Burmese script was further developed during this period, marking a major milestone in the kingdom's cultural development. The script, which had its roots in earlier Mon and Pyu writing systems, was refined under royal patronage to serve the needs of the Burmese-speaking population. This script was used to record historical events, religious teachings, and legal documents, contributing to the development of a rich literary tradition in the Burmese language. Monastic schools played a crucial role in the spread of education and religious scholarship throughout the kingdom. These schools were often attached to major temples and pagodas, where monks taught students Buddhist philosophy, ethics, and literature. Pagans rulers, who viewed themselves as protectors and promoters of the Buddhist faith, generously funded these institutions. As a result, the kingdom became a destination for scholars and monks from across the Buddhist world, attracting students from regions as far as Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. The patronage of Buddhist scholarship by Pagan's rulers also fostered the growth of Burmese literature. Religious themes dominated much of the literary output during this period, with poetry, sermons, and historical chronicles written to celebrate the life of the Buddha and promote Buddhist teachings. These texts were often inscribed on palm leaves or engraved on stone tablets, preserving them for future generations. One notable contribution to Buddhist scholarship was the Tripitaka inscriptions at Kuthoda Pagoda. Though erected later in the 19th century, they trace back to the monastic tradition of Pagan. Known as the world's largest book, these inscriptions contain the entirety of the Pali Canon and are a testament to Pagan's commitment to preserving and spreading Buddhist teachings. While internal challenges plagued Pagan, external pressures were also mounting, particularly from the Mongol Empire, which had begun to expand its reach into Southeast Asia during the late 13th century. Under the leadership of Kublai Khan, the Mongols had established themselves as a dominant force in Asia, and their empire extended across much of China and Central Asia. In their quest for further expansion, the Mongols turned their attention to Pagan. The first major Mongol invasion of Burma occurred in the late 1270s. Kublai Khan had initially sought to establish diplomatic relations with Pagan, requesting tribute from King Anawrahta, who ruled from 1256 to 1287. However, Anawrahta refused to submit to Mongol demands, leading to military conflict. In retaliation, the Mongols launched an invasion of Pagan in 1277, which culminated in the Battle of Nasanjian, where Pagan forces suffered a decisive defeat. Following this defeat, Pagan's military and economy were severely weakened. The Mongols continued their incursions into the kingdom, and by 1283, they had captured several key northern territories, including the important trade city of Tagang. The Mongol invasions placed an immense strain on Pagan's resources, as the kingdom struggled to finance military campaigns and defend itself against the superior Mongol forces. The final blow to the Pagan Kingdom came in 1287 when the Mongols launched a full-scale invasion of the capital city of Pagan itself. King Anawrahta, fearing further losses, fled the capital and sought refuge in the southern part of his kingdom. This move, however, led to further chaos and instability, as regional lords and military commanders saw the king's retreat as an opportunity to assert their own power. The Mongol forces, now largely uncontested, marched into Pagan and captured the city. Although the Mongols did not directly administer the region after their conquest, the submission of Pagan to the Mongols marked the end of the kingdom as a major regional power. The Mongol invasion devastated the kingdom's military and economic infrastructure, leading to a power vacuum that could not be filled by subsequent rulers. In the years following the Mongol invasion, Pagan experienced a rapid decline. The central authority had been shattered, and regional lords now wielded significant power. The once mighty kingdom that had unified much of modern-day Myanmar fragmented into smaller, competing states. The weakened central authority, coupled with the economic damage caused by the Mongol invasions, ensured that the kingdom could no longer maintain its position as a dominant force in Southeast Asia. As central authority weakened, local rulers and regional lords asserted their autonomy, capitalizing on the political instability that plagued the kingdom. Pagan's rulers had long relied on the allegiance of regional lords to maintain control over their territories. However, as succession crises and internal conflicts intensified, these lords began to act independently, seizing control of their regions and defying the authority of the Pagan court. This fragmentation of power marked the beginning of the end for the Pagan kingdom's ability to function as a unified state. One of the key drivers of the kingdom's collapse was its inability to maintain control over its outer territories. The northern regions, in particular, were vulnerable to external threats, especially from the Mongols. As the kingdom struggled to fend off Mongol invasions in the late 13th century, many of these territories fell into the hands of foreign powers or became semi-independent states under local rulers. This loss of control over Pagan's outer regions not only weakened its military capabilities but also strained its economic resources, further accelerating the kingdom's decline. In the wake of the Mongol invasions in 1287, the Pagan dynasty was left in a state of disarray. King Anawrahta's flight from the capital and the subsequent Mongol occupation of Pagan marked a turning point in the kingdom's history. Although the Mongols did not establish long-term rule over Burma, their invasions shattered the kingdom's political and military infrastructure. The disintegration of the Pagan dynasty followed soon after, as no subsequent rulers were able to re-establish the strong central authority that had once characterized the kingdom. By the end of the 13th century, Pagan's political structure had collapsed entirely. The once unified kingdom fragmented into smaller, competing states, each ruled by local warlords or former provincial governors. These smaller states, which lacked the resources and cohesion of the original Pagan kingdom, would dominate the political landscape of Burma for the next several centuries. The final years of the Pagan dynasty were marked by continued instability, as various factions vied for control over what remained of the kingdom's territories. The grandeur of Pagan's temples is characterized by unique architectural styles that reflect a blend of Indian, Southeast Asian, and indigenous influences. Iconic structures such as the Ananda Temple and Shwezigon Pagoda showcase intricate carvings, elaborate murals, and innovative architectural techniques that have inspired generations of architects and artists. The Bagan Plain remains one of the richest archaeological sites in Southeast Asia, providing invaluable insights into the region's history, culture, and religious practices. In closing, the Pagan Kingdom's legacy is a testament to its remarkable contributions to the history of Burma and the spiritual and cultural fabric of Southeast Asia. Its architectural masterpieces and the lasting influence of Theravada Buddhism underscore its role as a catalyst for cultural exchange and religious development. As modern Myanmar continues to navigate its identity and place in the world, the rich heritage of the Pagan Kingdom serves as both an inspiration and a reminder of the enduring power of culture, religion, and shared history in shaping human experiences across time and space.